Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with another interesting topic in hip hop that's been talked about, or different topics that's been talking about hip hop that's been kind of controversial in the atmosphere, and this is regarding hip hop albums that were never released. So, a lot of albums that never released in hip hop for whatever reason, either the other party, it was a collab album and one of the parties died, i.e., a Biggie, or, you know, one of the artists went to jail forever, or, for whatever reason, the artist fell out, or the artist just didn't have it anymore to put out the piece of work that they wanted to put out. But it's a bunch of different albums that I'll talk about today that in hip hop, they never came to fruition. And unfortunately, as a listener or a fan or a viewer, we were never able to see these things come out and hear what they sounded like, because a lot of them were very anticipated, and unfortunately they never were released. And these pieces of works, even if they came out 20 years later, we will still want to hear um, these projects and be able to listen to them. So without further ado, I'll get into a list of albums that I've put together that have been anticipated for a long time in hip hop. We may or may not get them ever. So first is, of course, Dr. Dre's Detox. Dr. Dre's Detox been rumored to have come out to come out over the last couple of decades, but we never got it. Probably never will. Unfortunately, Dr. Dre had the Straight Outta Compton movie, with NWA, and he released an album called Compton. And late last year, he released an album with Snoop Dogg. So we've gotten projects from Dr. Dre, and we also got production from him on other projects, but we never got a solo project since 2001. So it's been a while since we really got a true Dr. Dre solo project that wasn't tied to a soundtrack or tied to another artist. So that's something people have been clamoring for decades. Probably never get it, and by the time we get it, it's not going to be what we think it is, but I don't think we'll ever get it, just because of the obligations he has as a businessman, and just so much time has elapsed since then. It's been over, close to 25 years now, so we probably won't get that. The next album that we haven't got, we never, unfortunately, were able to get in hip hop, is due to the death of Notorious B.I.G., is the Notorious B.I.G. and Jay-Z collaborative album called The Commission. Now, this combo pairing, we don't have a lot of sample size for it, but when I listen to I Love the Dough, which is off of Biggie's second album, his last album, unfortunately, due to his untimely passing, this song was historic. It was classic. It had us clamoring for more. Just the way they fed off one another, and the way their subject matter were so much alike. It was one of those Raekwon, the Chef, and Ghostface type situations, or one of those legendary, like a Mobb Deep. You get one of those back and forth. And unfortunately, we didn't get that album. It would have been nice to just have one album from them collaboratively, and also more albums from Biggie, because, like I said, I don't think he even reached his ceiling before he was gone. And the next album was Andre 3000, which was a solo album from him. He had The Love Below, which you can count as a solo album, but it was attached to Big Boy's Speaker Box album back in 2003. Now, Andre 3000 released the Flute album, and I talk about that all the time, which, I appreciate the artistry and thinking outside the box, but we all fans are fans of Andre 3000 and Outkast, and also his solo projects. I mean, not solo projects, but his guest appearances on different songs, like a Walk It Out, International Player Anthem, things like that. We're big fans of that. We want to see what a solo project with him sound like, because we know it'll be all over the place. There'll be singing, there'll be rapping. It'll be a mix of everything, and I think it'll be a project for everyone, for everyone's liking or their preferences. The next album, which I know we won't get, is Child Rebel Soldier with Lupe Fiasco, Kanye, and Pharrell. Now, when you have Pharrell on production and you have Kanye on production, and then you have Lupe rapping, you can't go wrong. And also Pharrell does a little singing, and of course Kanye does rapping and a little singing as well. So it's a lot of opportunity for that group for them as artists to have, because you have two producers and a rapper, and all guys can rap and sing to a degree, minus Lupe. So there was a lot of opportunity for artistic expression and for hits and slaps, as they call them. But unfortunately, we probably never get that one, and just like the other ones. Now, the next album is always seemed to be having me stumped and have many people stumped. I've read many articles on this, and probably I'll do a piece on this eventually. But Lauryn Hill, second album, we know the first album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, did very well in the Grammys. It was very commercially successful. One of the top 100 albums of all time, whether it be Billboard or whoever wants to put out a list, that album is always in the top 100, usually within the top 20 or top 10. But unfortunately, she never followed that up, and there's a lot of theories to why she never did that, whether it be just the pressures of putting out a second album or whatever they came out with. It's never been solidified totally, but it definitely needs to be a documentary on why that project was never followed up. One of the biggest mysteries in hip-hop, even though the album was classified as pop, but she's hip-hop, so it's one of the biggest mysteries. Next album that we never got was a Chance the Rapper and Childish Gambino mix, a collaborative album, and that's something I personally would like because they're very two artistic people who come from very artistic backgrounds. And Childish Gambino does movies and he does comedy and he does pretty much everything. He was slated to be the new Will Smith, so to speak. And of course, Chance the Rapper sings and raps and just has all of this content that's positive. And to the degree, Childish Gambino has that as well. And these guys are friends and, are very familiar with one another. So I think the chemistry in the studio would have been very exceptional, but I don't know if we'll ever get that album. The next album is Big 3 album with J. Cole, Kendrick, and Drake. I'm pretty sure we won't get that album, so I won't go too far into it. But that'll be good to see with, the singing of Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick Lamar's rapping, and just the ability, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity there for a lot of hits and for a lot of solid music with great messaging in it. Next, of course, is Drake and Rick Ross. Now, if Drake and Rick Ross had an album, like they have classic songs together, classic chemistry. But unfortunately, with the fallout, we probably never get that again. Yet along any songs from those guys, but that would be legendary, collaborative works. I like Party Next Door and I like Drake, but I don't want to see them together on the project. It would make more sense to have Tory Lanez and Party Next Door on a project, to me. But Drake and Rick Ross is one that I would love to have seen. Another one we couldn't see, we'll never see, is unfortunately a Missy Elliott and Aaliyah collaborative album. Unfortunately, Aaliyah's no longer here. Rest in peace to Aaliyah. But they always had great chemistry on songs. They had a great friendship, a lot of pictures together, a lot of good times it appears to have, with that whole crew with them and with Timbaland and Genuine and just the whole VA crew that they had. I think that those songs would have been classic. Missy and Aaliyah, you can have them on a hook and interchange it. And then you can have Missy on the verses or Aaliyah on the verses. Either way, they would have done it. It would have been commercially successful and one of the top hip hop albums of all time. And of course, Wale and J. Cole, those two, similar content that they put out, very positive music, great messaging in their music. They rap with a point. That would have been a very introspective album, a very intricate album, I believe, that they would have put together. That's something I always wanted to see, two of those backpack type rappers together. SZA and Kendrick Lamar. Now, we know that album is what people want to see just off the recent 30 for 30 that they've done, all the stars, the songs Gloria and Luther that they did on the GNX album. Great works that we want to see and we want to see more of, and they're on tour right now. So an album would only make sense for those two. I believe that album is probably the most possible that's on this list that will actually come out. And then lastly, Mason Cameron. We know that they've been great friends for over 20 years, play basketball together, do It Is What It Is podcast right now. Well, it's not a podcast. They do a production company, It Is What It Is right now, that's on YouTube. They have great chemistry and they have great rapping still. Cameron's still doing his thing. I think Mace still is rapping to a certain degree, but I think he's hesitant about putting a project out because of the content matter and the language matter. And I think he's still, heavily into the religious stuff. So he's trying to figure everything out with that. But that's one of the albums that I want to see because, like I said, the play off each other is very good. But those are the albums that were never released and that I think most of them will likely never happen. So just let me know what you think of, some albums that you want to see that were not released in hip hop that you want to see come to fruition. Well, as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.